I've been playing Remnant 2 non-stop since its release, having accrued a healthy, or perhaps dangerously antisocial 90 hours of playtime, combined with now having finished all the worlds in Apocalypse difficulty. I look back on the experience absolutely baffled, because my one takeaway from all those hours is that Remnant 2 profoundly hates me. And it hates you too. Let's explore why. Hidden beneath the gorgeous vistas, high-concept story, and assorted issues plaguing one of the first Unreal Engine 5 titles to market is a game with a brutally difficult combat loop. At least, if you're a perpetual loner solo player like me. The game oscillates between making you feel like a demigod, smoking around like a Spectre shotgun ninja, one-shotting ads and elites to the face, to making you beg for a merciful end in boss encounters. And yes, before you say it, I know the devs intended solo players to use the handler and medic archetypes to self-heal, but hear me out. DPS is life. Since Remnant 2 is one of my first Souls-like titles, I'll bring up a qualm you've likely heard before by those of us not fully initiated into Souls' sadomasochism culture. The highly pattern-centric, procedural boss battles aren't actually difficult, they're just annoying, and there's a stark difference between the two. I'm no stranger to classically difficult games. I was a tournament shooter player in the 90s, spending a lot of time on Quake 3 Arena. More recently, I've been fortunate to do some high-tier sim racing, and I can attest that at the upper levels, both of these are almost unimaginably difficult, making requirements of you that my battered old body simply cannot live up to anymore. So when I say that Remnant 2 isn't difficult, but rather annoying in these encounters, I hope you grasp my full meaning. People online often talk about the level of quote-unquote skill you need in order to play Souls-like titles. But that's a bit like considering yourself a genius just because you mastered pattern recognition and can crush a Rubik's Cube in a minute. The one has almost nothing to do with the other. See, Remnant 2 relies on you dying. And dying. And dying again. In order to memorize the cues for all the combat sequences that the multi-phase boss battles are going to bring to bear. Our brains are pattern recognition machines, and I can assure that once you've been battered and beaten down by these bosses and their, frankly, quite cheap combat mechanics, you'll eventually memorize the cues and blitz around the arena like some no-hit demigod wizard. This is what brings us to Apocalypse mode, which is the majority of footage that you've been seeing. By the time I had clambered and bled my way to an Apocalypse playthrough, I'd already been killed so many times by one-shot mechanics that playing through the boss encounters on Apocalypse was scarcely any more difficult than my initial veteran run. And herein lies the issue. I keep going back for more. In spite of the boss combat loop being intrinsically anti-player, and despite the game triggering random elite rush encounters where you're literally bombarded from off-screen by enemies that can often one-shot you, I still feel the core gunplay in this title, much like in Destiny 2, is extremely satisfying. The aesthetic is great, the sound design is awesome, the soundtrack is even memorable at points. And beyond everything, there are more secrets hidden in the game than even 90 hours will let you find. And then, I'll encounter yet another boss, and the masochism begins anew. The absolute best example of this happened during an Apocalypse playthrough of Lassam. I encountered the Huntress casually sleeping on the ground, so, as any normal person would, I start cheesing her mount in the face with Nightfall. After engaging her in combat, and almost winning several times, I kept getting taken out by the one-shot mechanics. But that was only the beginning. See, every time I died, due to a performance bug in the game, my FPS dropped. So every time I engaged in this somewhat ridiculous encounter, it got notably worse. Until at the very end, I was playing through a slideshow with so much input lag and dropped frames that I barely had any ability to dodge anything. In the end, I had to throw in the towel and ditch my Explorer archetype for Gunslinger for the pure DPS to get the job done. When I finally got a chance to check my frame counter, it was capped at 30. If there is any single experience that encapsulates the sheer essence of Remnant 2, it was this. It was pure poetry. Remnant 2 is a game that is just as likely to punish you for its own poor mechanics and codebase as it is for any legitimate error you do or don't make. This is what makes it so unbelievably frustrating. I can deal with a faster racer beating me on the Nürburgring. I can deal with a tournament shooter player with better reflexes owning me. What I can't deal with is an enemy behind a wall going through an attack animation I can't see, sending a one-shot attack through that wall to end me after I've already taken most of its HP out. I put to you that Remnant 2 fosters a classically abusive relationship with its players. You keep going back in thinking that next time will be different, Remnant can change, and everything does feel great for a while. Until you get to that next encounter, and the beatdown begins again. I may have old school sensibilities, but to me, dying in a video game is something to be avoided at all costs. I would much rather be given the opportunity to enter a boss fight and emerge victorious on the first go, rather than be mercilessly beaten down until I develop a sort of prescience as to everything the boss will ever do. It's a bit like Groundhog Day. If you get to relive the encounter endlessly, obviously you're ultimately going to exploit the most optimal way through it. And as a result, there's no genuine sense of achievement after it. You simply just think, thank God that's over. Though, do let me know your thoughts, abuse, and general allusions to my ineptitude at playing games based on your own playthroughs. I think that overall, Remnant 2 is a wonderful game with strong combat mechanics, amazing audio visuals, some great Easter egg hunts, and a reasonably satisfying high-concept story which ties its diverse biomes together quite elegantly. The RPG element falls on its face a bit, since many of the starting guns will actually get you through the entire game, taking away some of the luster behind grinding for the hidden ones. It's safe to say that for your standard catch-all high-tier playthrough, you're going to be running Nightfall and Enigma. Enigma is unmatched for clearing ads as a solo player, and Nightfall's boss killer mod makes it a shoo-in as a main weapon. These got me through Veteran, and they got me through Apocalypse. At least, until the patch which nerfed them came out a day before this video was made. On that note, if you'd like a build guide showing how to solo Apocalypse with the new meta, do let me know and I'll put together something showing all the goodies. This channel is brand new, so please consider subscribing to make it an ongoing thing. While I am technically a seasoned YouTuber, I suffer from the horrible affliction of not being able to stop making new channels about different topics. A nice short-term goal would be 1K, so with your help, I hope we get there and keep the content coming. Until then. God damn it.